Let me set the scene for you. Maybe you're a teacher and you're teaching your Suzuki group class, or maybe you're a parent and you're at group class with your kid and you're just kind of chilling in the back and everybody is doing what they're supposed to do. They're lined up, they're tuned up, they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're playing pretty well, they're following directions, they look engaged and marginally happy. And then the parent looks up from their magazine and realizes that, oh my gosh, their child has put their instrument down and removed their socks and shoes and is making noise with the chair and is crawling around the room on their stomach. And slowly all of the other kids are becoming distracted by this special little friend in the corner. So before you pull your hair out, I am here to help. Hi, I'm Annie Barley Givler. I was a Suzuki kid myself. I started cello with Carrie Beth Hockett at the age of 2. And I'm pretty sure most folks would agree that I was a pretty squirrely friend as a kid. But I'm grown up now. I am a cellist and a Suzuki teacher living right outside Philadelphia. I've got 3 kids and an awesome husband. I'm also a Suzuki mom myself. I've got a Suzuki violinist and a Suzuki trumpeter. In my 15 years of classroom teaching experience, largely in sort of high needs areas, I've realized that a lot of times a student's music education is hindered by extra musical issues. Maybe the student doesn't have the social emotional skills that they need in order to be successful in their music education journey. And so it is my responsibility as their teacher not just to teach them how to play the cello, but also how to work in a group, how to respond to an adult in a positive way. I've worked with students with tons of different diagnoses, everything from ADHD to schizophrenia. But at the end of the day, diagnosis or not, medication or not, the kid in front of me doesn't have the skills they need to be successful at the moment. I strongly suggest starting with this book. It's called Lost at School by Dr. Ross Greene. And in it, Dr. Greene encourages us to shift our perception of a struggling kid from this kid refuses to behave to this kid can't behave. For me, that small shift was a total game changer. We all believe that every child can. It's an essential tenet to the Suzuki method, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe that on some level. But sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that belief as a squirrely student is testing your patience and not following your directions and being distracting to other students in your group class, or it's your own child and they're unwilling to brush their teeth or they refuse to go to bed at the right time. We all struggle with that as parents. So this book and shifting your perception from kids refusing to behave to kids behave if they can frames the issue a lot differently. At least it did for me. If a kid is not behaving, it's because they lack the skills they need to show the right behavior in that moment in time. That can be for a number of reasons. That can be for a huge host of lacking skills. But just having that perception, it really informs your teaching or your parenting in a really different way. In adopting this new framework, Kids Behave If They Can, it became clear that I needed to move forward with some sort of individualized character plan for my squirreliest students, or my squirreliest kid in this particular case. And in order to do that well, I needed to share some language with families whose kids would be developing a character plan. So the language that I chose to use is centered around the 24 character strengths and virtues. You can find out all about this on the Values in Action website, VIA, Values in Action. And so I asked the families of my students to take an assessment for their kids and let me know, like, what are their kids' strongest character strengths and what are areas of growth for their kid. So maybe their kid is incredibly zesty but lacks social intelligence, or needs some work in their humility, or needs the most work in their self-control. Once I have these surveys and this information back, I'm going to do some basic data collection or applied behavioral analysis of the student in my group class situation, is also in their private lesson situation. I'm just going to basically be looking for things that trigger certain behaviors and situations where the child is unsuccessful in meeting my expectations. I oftentimes use the checklist here, the assessment of lagging skills and unsolved problems, which comes straight from the Lost at School book. Things on the list that are very common, difficulty transitioning from one activity to the next, difficulty following directions, difficulty staying on task, difficulty, and then I can more clearly have an idea in mind to formulate a plan to help the student develop the character skills they need. For all you Suzuki heads out there, the analogy that I usually make, which makes people understand what I'm talking about, is at the end of this assessment process, I can confidently say that my favorite Squirrelly student is in book 4 in Suzuki, but book 1 in self-control, and maybe book 7 in zest. So we're at a place where I can see the skills that the student needs in order to be successful and where we need to go with our current skill set to get there. But now I have to take a step back from that situation and evaluate my teaching and my own interaction with the student in question. If the student is one that struggles with auditory processing issues or English as a second language, I need to check myself and make sure that I'm using language that is concise and easily understood. I need to make sure that I repeat directions multiple times. Those are easy adaptations that I can make in order to accommodate the student. As with many of the squirrels in our lives, maybe this student is one that struggles with self-control. Maybe it's really hard for this student to focus. So what active directions am I giving this student in group class when they don't know the song? This is something that I really need to think about and make sure that I'm giving them specific and informed tasks to do instead of just asking them to sit still. If I, as the teacher or parent of the student, fail to do that, I'm setting them up to be unsuccessful through no fault of their own. And they're going to come away with a really negative taste in their mouth. This is the end of Squirrelly One's Part 1. The takeaways from Part 1, I hope, are that kids are not inherently wanting to misbehave in your group class. They would behave better if they could. And it is our job as their teachers to help them develop the skills they need in order to learn violin or cello. And I hope that you feel encouraged and empowered to take on this challenge of teaching character right alongside with the Suzuki literature.